session name is Algorithmic Invisibility, Data Colonialism, and the DG-verse Crisis. Today, by this session, we try to explore how media contests and argues uh, this theme as a presenting factor in today's life. So, to guide us through today's proceedings, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Promiti Roy. Dr. Promiti Roy is the Director of Media Science and Associate Professor and Head of the Department of Mass Communication and Journalism at Swami Vivekananda University. She earned her PhD in Mass Communication from the University of Burdwan in 2023. Specializing in public relations, civic discourse, and communication studies. Her academic interests include public relations, political communication, digital media, media convergence, gender studies, and communication research. A postgraduate in journalism and mass communication from the University of Calcutta. Dr. Roy began her career as a feature writer with the Times of India, Kolkata, before moving into academia. She has previously served at Jogesh Chandra Chaudhary College and Amity University, Calcutta, and is currently an affiliate research fellow at the Scottish Centre of Tagore Studies, Edinburgh. She has been nominated as a postdoctoral fellow at the Institute for Advanced Studies in the Humanities, University of Edinburgh for 2026. An active researcher and academician, Dr. Roy has presented papers at numerous national and international conferences and has authored over 45 publications, including articles in Scopus indexed and UGC CARE listed journals, edited volumes, and book chapters. She continues to make significant contributions to media and communication studies through her research, teaching, and academic leadership. Now it is my privilege to invite Professor Shubhadeep Kormakar. Sir, so before we begin,
Safia Umoja Nobel's work, who extends a similar critique into the digital present and in the algorithmics of operation people operate. And search engines are not neutral, but systems are capable of reproducing historical inequalities while presenting themselves as objective mechanisms of retrieval. And I have also used the frameworks of Thiongo and colonial education, which is significant, demonstrating how literary traditions become universalized while others become peripheral through educational and institutional structures. And therefore, methodologically, I have operated a qualitative and interpretative approach. And Hamlet occupies one of the most institutionally secure positions within the Western literary canon. Gitanjali, despite it winning a Nobel Prize, global recognition, and immense literary significance, occupies a more complicated position within the global literary discourse. Through the search results from Google Search, Google Scholar, JSTOR, Google Books, digital repositories, metadata structures, recommendation systems show a comparison that allows us to examine whether digital platforms reproduce existing hierarchies of literary visibility. So it is generally not about which text possesses more critical or literary value, but investigating the infrastructures that reproduce the Eurocentrism and the preference towards Eurocentrism. And therefore, the first page search results of both Hamlet and Gitanjali reveal an exceptional disparity within the interpretative ecosystem, while approximately through one or two screens of results have observed that the text was embedded within a network of institutions such as the Folger, Shakespeare Library, MIT Shakespeare, Shakespeare Birthplace Trust, Spark Notes and Lit Charts, and university ascribed academic resources and theatrical archives. And even Google's people also ask sections, give us more access to resources with other canonized texts of Shakespeare. But with Gitanjali, there are generic sites, so it's more about accessibility, and there is not much scholarly or critical material from as far as search. Even in JSTOR, there is a disparity between the search results. In JSTOR, like if Gitanjali has 25,000 papers, Hamlet maybe has 50,000. Visible results from Gitanjali I found like Internet Archive, platforms like Goodreads and Amazon, and Project Gutenberg, which has downloadable editions, PDF collections, and introductory literary sources. But they do not, for Gitanjali specifically, they do not collectively generate the same density as interpretative archive. So it's not quantitative, and the issue is definitely not Hamlet appears more often, but the infrastructures are unequal, and there is a reproduction of historical asymmetries within contemporary systems of retrieval. Therefore, the purpose of this paper is not to diminish Shakespeare's significance in the literary canon or to establish a simplistic opposition between Western or non-Western literature. And it is not about if Hamlet or Gitanjali deserve their canonical status, but if earlier generations encountered literature through classrooms, institutions, and literary criticism, contemporary readers increasingly encounter literature through search interfaces before they counter it anywhere else. So, I would like to conclude by saying that the distinction is not simply between presence or absence, but between different modes of literary mediation. Shakespeare's plays are presented to interpretation, while Tagore's is largely through accessibility. Therefore, the distinction reveals the continuing importance of literary institutions to shape canonical status and cultural authority, if maintained through the intrinsic qualities of the text, but there is no colonial bias. But with colonial bias, there is an unfair, biased amount of accumulation of critical, pedagogical, and institutional structures continuously reproducing the significance, and search engines do make these disparities and structures visible. And what appears on the screen is not just a list of results, but a reflection of centuries worth of educational prioritization, scholarly investment in cultural circulation, and consequently digital platforms inherit pre-existing literary hierarchies that frequently reinforce them through patterns of discoverability and visibility. And findings contribute to broader discussions within the domain of digital humanities, with digital technologies transform access to knowledge and the conditions under which knowledge is organized and produced. Databases, search engines, archives, and digital interfaces increasingly mediate relationships between cultural and user material and the organization of material is never entirely neutral, and the prominence of particular institutions, texts, and interpretative resources and the literary values will always be perceived and reproduced. And the digital state does not eliminate traditional structures of society, but reinforce and produce new mechanisms through which these structures continue to operate. Ashcroft, Griffiths, and Tiffin also demonstrate that literary canons have been shaped by relationships with the center and periphery and authorities and exclusion. Therefore, the comparison between the selected texts suggests that these dynamics often inform contemporary digital environments, and the internet is frequently celebrated for democratizing the space capable of expanding access to diverse literary traditions, and the evidence indicates older patterns of influential cultural centrality and texts associated with historically dominant literary traditions, benefiting from extensive networks of interpretation and institutional reinforcement of non-Western texts that continue to circulate through comparatively limited infrastructures and critical engagement. So, with the influx of publishing houses, literary critics, and universities and educational institutions are significant, but digital interfaces and search engines are also significantly a participant in the production of literary authority and colonial hegemony. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shubham Mandal. I am from Central University of Punjab, and my research topic for today, I am going to present one paper. Title is Climate Resilience Between Policy and Practice, a multimodal analysis of government communication on Instagram. This study examined how the government of India communicate climate resilience through Instagram, especially through the official account of Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, commonly known as MOEFCC. My central argument is that the Instagram is not simply information, it has become an important space where climate resilience is visually constructed, simplified, and communicated to citizens. Climate resilience has become one of the important concepts in contemporary environmental governance. Traditionally, like climate resilience refers to the ability climate resilience refer to the ability of communities, ecosystem, and institution to adapt the climate-related challenges. In India, resilience is not a new idea. It has long been embedded in indigenous knowledge system, local environmental practice, and community-based adaptation strategies. However, today, climate communication increasingly takes place on digital platform. Among these platforms, Instagram has emerged as a powerful communication space because it becomes visuals, captions, hashtag, videos, and audience engagement features. Government are now using Instagram to communicate environmental policies and climate initiative. Existing research shows four major concerns like fragmented communication, technical and disconnected from everyday experience. Second, like government communication on Instagram remain relatively underexplored. And third is indigenous and community-based perspective are frequently marginalized. And finally, there is a risk that climate communication become symbolic sustainability rather than meaningful public participation. So I have got some review of literature which are most important here, and the research gaps is like government Instagram climate communication remain underexplored, particularly in global south contexts such as India. And limited study examine Instagram as a multimodal platform combining visuals, captions, hashtag, platform affordances. And indigenous knowledge and community-based adaptation remain marginalized in state-led climate communication. Limited year-long research exists on MOEFCC Instagram communications and its role in shaping climate resilience narratives. So this forms the four research questions, that is, how is climate resilience represented in Instagram communication of Ministry of Environment, forest, and climate change. What type of visual, subject, and thematic pattern characterize the communication of climate resilience in MOEFCC Instagram post? To what extent do government Instagram posts align with key dimension of climate resilience? How does government communication on Instagram construct urgency and translate climate policy into practice-oriented narratives and actionable strategies? So for this, I have used two theoretical framework. One is Nature 2.0, which explain how environmental meanings are created through digital platforms such as Instagram. The second is spectacular environmentalism, which explain how environmental issues are often presented through visually appealing and emotionally engaging content. Together, this framework help us understand how climate resilience is transformed into digital narrative for public consumptions. The methodology I have used is qualitative approach and multimodal visual content analysis. It includes data source from MOEFCC from January 2025 to December 2025. This is an institutional climate communication sampling. We have used the purpose is sampling. Initial data set was 960 posts, but final it was 720. Climate resilience related post only we have choose, and this we have created the course that is already existing in our literature. For climate resilience framework, we have adopted 8 themes: adaptability, learning, sustainability, integration, inclusiveness, risk preparedness, diversity, and indigenous knowledge. Next, the result is like there are 4 questions. The first result for the first question, the representation of climate resilience. Climate resilience is framed as positive, actionable, and behavior-oriented, focusing on sustainability and eco-friendly public practice rather than structural climate inequality or vulnerability. The second is what type of visual subjects and theme they are heavily communicated. That is the communication heavily on videos, nature, imagery, and conservation visuals, promoting optimistic and solution-oriented environmental narratives while marginalizing conflict, displacement, and social inequality. Third is what type of dimensions they are using for climate resilience, like post strong list emphasize the sustainability and adaptability, but underrepresenting risk preparedness and indigenous ecological knowledge, which shows a selective resilience framework. Fourth is like climate resilience is constructed into simple individual practice oriented and community actions such as tree planting and conservations. The discussions like the government Instagram communication function as a form of platformization, environmental governance, where climate resilience is presented through visually engaging and behavior-oriented narratives. The findings support Nature 2.0 and spectacular environmentalism, showing that Instagram transformed climate policy into simplified, aesthetically appealing, and publicly consumable environmental content. Climate communication largely emphasize sustainability, awareness, and citizen participation. The study also identify environmental responsibilization, where citizens are framed as responsible climate actor through lifestyle change and eco-friendly behavior. Instagram has emerged an important platform for government climate resilience. MOEFCC primarily communicate climate resilience through visually engaging content, and climate resilience is framed more as an actionable and optimistic sustainability discourse. Critical dimensions such as risk preparedness, indigenous knowledge, inclusiveness, and environmental justice remain underrepresented. The study identifies a platformized and selective form of climate resilience communication that prioritizes awareness, symbolic participations, and behavioral governance. The limitation of my study is the study is limited to publicly available Instagram post from Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change during January to December 2025 does not examine other platform or offline environmental campaign. The analysis focus only on visible multimodal content such as image, caption and hashtag, excluding audience reception and policy making process. The purposive and non-random sampling approach limits statistical generality. Instagram algorithmic visibility and platform affordance may influence which climate narratives become more visible. The study does not directly measure the impact of Instagram communication on public environmental behavior or climate awareness. These are the reference. Thank you.
Can I play a video here or? Acha, okay, no problem. Yeah, so hi everyone, good morning. I'm Sudhir Pandey from Ahmedabad University. Uh, this is my topic and I wanted to show some video, but I'll quickly say because we don't have audio video together. But we are all familiar with this urban company. And I saw on one ad on urban company which was about a lady who is working as beauty gig worker, those who work in salon but they also visit houses. And she comes home and there is a younger brother and she's asking that younger brother that would you like me to take you for a ride, we can go somewhere and have ice cream or something. And he's very embarrassed. The moment he sees her, he quickly goes into a room, locks himself. And then when she's asking, he's very embarrassed. He says that everybody in this society knows, how did you manage to buy a car? And the name of the ad is Choti Soch. So she's saying how? So she says, so that fellow is really embarrassed and is saying that, Bhaiya log kehte hain ki you give happy ending to people. And then she responds. So that is the social stigma that motivated me to explore this research. And then after that, I went to 2-3 places. Once I went to Mumbai and Gurgaon, and I saw lots and lots of only beauty gig workers. They were protesting. And I just halted there and I asked them about the protest, and they told me that they don't know with whom they are interacting, and it is the algorithm because it is a platform economy that we are talking about. And there is a company, physical company, and there is a platform company. So you never know who is managing. So they said that we don't know how to respond, whom to respond, and whom to actually complain. And when our rating goes less than 4.5, 4.7 out of 5, and if it goes consistently, let's say for 3-4 times, they block us. And then our ID is blocked, we don't know, and we are not paid, and there is nothing. And when it is blocked, we want to complain to somebody, we have no idea whom to interact. And then I read a paper, and then these two motivations worked for me. Then I started exploring. This looked like a very a recent phenomena, emerging phenomena all over the world. And then I came across a terminology called algorithmic management, where you don't have people, there are algorithms managing, and it manages on its own, the way we know. So I applied all these things, which is the stigma management, algorithmic management, and I wanted to explore particularly in this context. And recently there has been a work on salon worker. We know that those people who work in spa and salon largely in cities, they are not looked up like a very nice work. These are considered as a very shady work. And there was a recent work in Human Relations Journal which talked about how stigma is associated with caste and gender more as compared to others. And then I started exploring and I understood this. This is not a theory, this is a terminology called algorithmic management. And from there, then I started exploring what is the meaning of algorithmic management, what happens in this, and how does it manage people. And it is very clear that you cannot, the first thing that it does, it blocks you from your human rights. So you cannot organize yourself to raise your voice. So there is no human contact and there is no organizing. Other things work in the same way. And then these 3 questions I wanted to explore, which is how does the level of digital platform participation influence the implementation experience of algorithmic management practices among beauty gig workers only? And then in what ways do algorithmic management practices affect work-related psychological consequences, such as working hours? Because once you are not taking more than 3, or suppose you are busy and you are not taking, or there are areas while doing the research, I realized that in particularly in Ahmedabad and in Lucknow, other places wherever I went for the interview, first thing, it is very difficult to get the interview. They are not available. And even if they are available, even if you do not reveal their identity, they are not very comfortable. And they are not very comfortable going in certain part of the city, even if it is a posh area, because there were continuous complaint that people book for female, but when you go there is a male, they say you can do it. There are threatening environment and those things that can never be captured by the algorithm. So there were a lot of things that came across. So this was one. And then I wanted to understand their stresses and the social stigma. And I wanted to understand how does this social stigma, which is associated with, let's say, salon worker, how does it affect? Does it moderate, or the way it is given in the ad, it enhances? Clear? Because one fact that has been proven, that digital technologies, first thing they do is they enhance anything, whether it is inequality, racism, or let's say any kind of suppression or any kind of differentiation in the society. Digital technology, their job is to enhance that thing. So whether are they enhancing or they are decreasing. So that was the thing. And then these things that I looked at it, and there are a lot of people have written. But another thing that was very interesting to look at is the social stigma. So first work that we came across as stigma is by Goffman, who wrote about social stigma and spoiled identities. And if you read that book, he saw stigma as a very humanistic thing. Like we all are stigmatized in one way or the other. And he said there is no, let's say, getting away from this. Because even in our families, we do that and we do not know. In society, it is already there. But, and so that is very humanistic work. And when you read, you realize it is a kind of self-reflective work, and that captures the stigma, because very complex one. But after that, people started understanding stigma at a broader level, because from 1963, a very humanistic work, people came across and started understanding inequalities and stigma in this context. And they understood that how institutions, societies, laws, they create that kind of stigma and the kind of stress that they create. So what I've done, I've written that what kind of stigma can generate what kind of stress. And at the end of the day, stigma works in a cycle. So first it begins as stereotype, then prejudice, and then the moment there is a prejudice, obviously that will lead to discrimination. That's why in our societies and organizations, people are very particular about prejudice. All the HR policies and other things, because the moment something is prejudiced, it will lead to discrimination. That's how it works. And because it works in such a way, we do not realize and we don't know how to really tackle it. So I looked at this one, and then I looked at that, okay, at the job level, are there any kind of jobs which are considered as stigmatized? And obviously, working like labor and sanitized workers and all those things. So there are certain things which are considered as dirty work. And beauty gig work, because you are in physical contact with somebody, very intimate work. So anything that has to do with the physicality and to the gender, these things are actually a broader stigmatized anyway, in any possible way. So I looked at that, how intensity and proportion of work. And then I looked at the beauty industry. It was very difficult for me to find out a terminology called beauty gig worker, because there is no such, so there is one Beauty Matters magazine that comes that talks about beauty workers. And from there I took the term. And then I looked at it, that how these stigma work and what is the meaning of it. But I'll skip and go to the, and then the methodology. Obviously, you cannot do quantitative in this case. You have to do qualitative. So initially I began as quantitative, but I got feedback, and more so when I started talking to people, I realized I'm not able to capture what I'm trying to understand. So I shifted to this one, and then followed all the method, and this is what I found, that platforms, they are actually enhancing. But one thing which I'll quickly close it here with these findings is that most of the time when I interviewed these beauty gig workers, they said that it is a stigmatized work, because these are people from neighborhood salon. They're working for urban company, House Joy, Yes Madam. So they were saying that as it is, we don't carry a brand, so we were as it is stigmatized in the society. And there was a time when we did not get any job. Someday we were very busy, someday we were not. But associating with things like House Joy, Yes Madam, and the urban company, it has actually decreased the stigma, because we get t-shirt, we get branding, we know that we will get 4 to 5 jobs per day, and we are earning. And in our society, in our family, people believe that we earn a lot. So there is a respect. So they said that slowly it is also decreasing, not enhancing. Whereas when we work on our own, actually the stigma goes up. But it is a very gradual process, but I'm still exploring, because very difficult to talk to them and get the data. So let us see, but the initial result says that these companies, the way they are branding and doing all these things, it is helping people and particularly beauty gig workers to reduce the stigma. But algorithmic management complexity still remains the same. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Uh, huh? Good morning, everyone. My topic is on uses and my paper title is Invisible Games, Unequal Attention, or Uses and Gratification Study of Audience Perception. That's it. Good morning, everyone. My topic is on invisible games, unequal attention or uses of gratifications, study of audience perception, uh, of media coverage of lesser known sports. This study examines how audience perceive uh, study examined how audience perceived unequal visibility of sports in Indian media, uh, particularly the dominance of cricket and how digital media platforms are influencing audience engagement with lesser known sports. The research also explores whether digital exposure can encourage support intention and create alternative visibility spaces for sports that traditionally receive limited media attention. Uh, uh, to begin with, the Indian sports media has historically been inclined towards a particular sport, that is cricket. Cricket dominates television, broadcasting, sponsorship, news coverage, and digital discussion, while many other sports receive comparatively limited visibility. However, in recent years, digital platforms such as YouTube, Instagram, OTT platforms such as OTT sports streaming platforms such as Sony Live, Hotstar, receive have started reshaping the sports consumption patterns. Audience today are no longer dependent on a mainstream television network for sports content. This transformation raises an important question. Can digital media create more democratic visibility for lesser known sports? Or does it simply reproduce or existing inequalities through algorithms and engagement metrics? At the same time, the audience perception becomes extremely important because media visibility influences public engagement, fan support, sponsorship interest, and even policy attention towards sports. The core problem which has been addressed in this study is the disproportionate prioritization of cricket within mainstream Indian sports media. Despite achievements in sports such as badminton, hockey, on hockey, kabaddi, athletes, wrestling, or archery, these sports often receive inconsistent and limited coverage compared to cricket. Another important issue is that existing literature focusing only more on media institutions, sports commercialization, but comparatively fewer study exam fewer studies examine how audience themselves perceive the unequal visibility of those lesser known sports. Additionally, while digital media appears provide alternative exposure to the already popular sports content. Therefore, this research attempts to understand these dynamics through the audience motivations, engagement patterns, and perception. These are my research objectives and questions. This study was guided by uh, uh, three objectives where it examined how audience perceive the media coverage, analyze the relationship between digital exposure and engagement, investigate support intention towards lesser known sports. And the research questions also are those: how do audience perceive media coverage inequalities? Does digital exposure increase engagement? Does engagement translate into sports intentions? The literature insight and the theoretical framework in this study. This story is primarily grounded in usage and gratification theory. The theory is important because it shifts the focus from what media do with the audience to what audiences do with the media. In this context, the audience viewed as active participants who selectively consume sports content for various gratifications as entertainment, emotional connection, identity formation, inspiration, and social interaction. Existing literature also suggests that television transformed cricket into a highly marketable commodity in India, resulting in structural visibility advantages over other sports. At the same time, digital platforms have introduced alternative visibility spaces where audience can discover niche sports content independently of traditional broadcasters. However, these spaces still shaped by the platform algorithms, engagement metrics, and popularity cycles which influence what becomes visible and repeatably recommended. Thus, the framework combines usage and gratification theory with the perspectives from the digital media and the platform visibility studies. Now, moving to the methodology, uh, this, uh, this study adopted a quantitative cross-sectional survey design. The data was collected through Google surveys from 101 respondents. The participants mainly consisted of digitally active sports audiences familiar with the online sports consumption. The questionnaire examined perception of sports media inequality, digital exposure patterns, and audience engagement and sports intention towards lesser known sports. The analysis, the descriptive statistics were used to understand general response patterns, while correlation and regression analysis helped examine relationship among the variables such as digital exposure, engagement, and support intention. Uh, uh, Now come to the key findings. The descriptive analysis revealed that the digital exposure and audience engagement recorded comparatively higher mean scores among the respondents. This indicates the audience are increasingly engaging with the lesser known sports through digital platforms rather than relying solely on traditional mainstream media. Participants shown greater interaction with online sports, reels, highlights, short form videos, and platform based sports discussion. The findings suggest that digital media is playing an important role in improving the discoverability and accessibility of lesser known sports audiences. However, the visibility still remains uneven because audience attention continues to be strongly influenced by the mainstream popularity structures. Now I'm going to conclude. The study highlights that digital media has significant potential to improve discoverability of lesser known sports in India. At the same time, cricket continues to dominate mainstream sports visibility due to historical, commercial, and structural advantages. One of the major findings of this research is audience engagement significantly influences the support intention. When audiences repeatedly encounter and interact with the sports content online, they become more likely to emotionally invest in those sports. The study also demonstrates that algorithm visibility plays an important role in shaping sports exposure and discoverability within the digital environment. Therefore, sports visibility today is not determined only by the broadcaster or institution, but also by the platform algorithms, engagement metrics, and the audience interaction and patterns. This research contributes to the broader discussion on sports media inequality, digital transformation, and audience-centered media studies within the Indian context. Thank you so much.
It will take 2 minutes. She has to
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. Myself, Manushri, and I'm from St. Xavier's University. My topic is artificial intelligence literacy in journalism, exploring algorithmic bias, data inequality, and media practices in Kolkata. So, as we know that nowadays journalism, or in especially in media, sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am. So as we know that nowadays AI, artificial intelligence is taking places in every sector, not only in media sector, in every sector. So my specific area which I need to concentrate is media field. So the study, my section explains how artificial intelligence is transforming not only regional area or in city or in town, it is exploring in globally. It also highlights why studying AI literacy is important, especially in media sector, because we are getting so much information from media. Day to day update, everything we are getting information from media only. But if they are not aware of AI literacy, they are not aware of biased data, so they will be not able to introduce or give information to audience. At the same time, the background shows India's diverse media landscape, growing digitalization, and rising challenges like misinformation, bias, lack of AI awareness, and data inequality in media. The fourth is it sets the foundation for understanding the need, relevance, and purpose of the research. Recently, we have seen that the first post, and Palki Sharma is one of the very famous anchor. She has introduced that ChatGPT can create a fake Aadhaar card. That's true. But we can consider either she doesn't know the proper information or she just mislead of us, because while uploading a fake AI generated PAN or Aadhaar may not able to bypass online or offline KYC. It can generate the Aadhaar card, but it cannot generate the KYC or the code. It's a very difficult thing, and it is also depend man to man, the identity, the profile also. So ChatGPT generated a fake PAN card, but it could be perceived as a real by unsuspecting people, make it easier for scammers to trick them. So the question is, Palki Sharma has introduced, or she has given that information, but there is a lack of information. So what we are assuming that now ChatGPT can create Aadhaar card with the KYC and everything. So this is misinformation. So we need to train that journalists also, what is AI literacy, before introduce or giving some information to the local people. The other thing is, we have recently seen that one Pakistani newspaper, it makes a blunder mistake that they create a problem is like they create a content And the last prompt, that is the AI adoption in India, is a lack of knowledge, because the prompt, she has just left at that end of the prompt, like what you may, like you need anything else, then you can ask us. So the thing, that prompt is there only, and that paper is also published. So we can consider that due to lack of AI training, she just posted and that got viral. So this is also a major concern. Recently, we have seen our ex-chief minister. She has, like Mamata Banerjee, she is no more chief minister right now. So Shubhendu Adhikari is holding the place. But ChatGPT is considering her still as a chief minister. So there are, we can say that is a lack of information and data inequality. Biased information is also there. Recently, CM Mamata Banerjee has hold a rally in Y channel, at Y channel. So I asked ChatGPT, like I wrote in Bangla, শ্রীমতী মমতা ব্যানার্জি ওয়াই চ্যানেলের দিকে রওনা দিলেন তার কালীঘাটের বাড়ি থেকে বেরোলেন, and I asked it to write in English. So ChatGPT said the Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee left her Kalighat residence and sent out for a Y channel. So it used Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee. So somehow, just give me. So. Yeah. So how? So basically, machine learning uses patterns rather than actual understanding. When I asked ChatGPT to translate the Bengali sentence, so what it's written that Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee left her Kalighat receive. However, at the time of the translation, Mamata Banerjee was no longer the Chief Minister. So, but the translation should be simplified as Srimati Mamata Banerjee. But it illustrates that Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee. So it depends on machine learning language, how it's a biased data, we can say, because in on social media platform there are so many information. It considered that Chief Minister still exists as a Mamata Banerjee. So that's why ChatGPT took that information. So we can say that it's a not in inequality data and also biased information. So machine learning is subcategory of AI that uses algorithms to detect patterns in data, typically vast quotients of data, then uses in insight-making decision. At the same time, the process of the electoral transaction and the post-election period was also, we have seen that election period, there are so many like misinformation content, like when TMC was on power, so we are getting lot of negative coverages against the opposition party. Right now, we will not even see that there are so many coverages that BJP is holding. Like recently, we have seen that a minor girl has been raped. But media is not highlighting that. So even there are some researches where they are like the WhatsApp informations are there. So in this way, media, AI somehow manipulating media also. So the background is like that AI tools is also better in English language rather than regional language. Like not good in Bengali, not good in other language also. So it can be highlight that data inequality is there. The problem statement is AI adoption in Indian newsroom increasing rapidly, but AI literacy among journalists is there are so many lack of training. Even I have it words with journalists, they said we don't, when I asked what is AI, so they simply told me that artificial intelligence. So they have used that full form, rather saying that what is artificial intelligence, how they can use it, they have no idea. So they are looking forward, if we are getting training about artificial intelligence, that will be very good for them. They can detect how to like give a proper information. There are so many misinformation also. And the rush in implement AI without proper training threatens accuracy, definitely, ethics and public trust in journalism. So my research objective, my aim is like the aim of this study is to explore the connection of artificial intelligence in journalism by addressing the shape of algorithmic bias, data inequality and changing media practices in the digital journalism landscape, especially in Kolkata. So there are research objectives also. like what is the conceptual literacy of artificial intelligence, and how does artificial intelligence influence the current trends in journalism, what are the concern about the problem of algorithmic bias, inequality data, and what are the issues come with AI literacy, and what are the strategies and suggestions that can help in journalism or for media. These are the literature reviews. Methodology is like we will follow mixed methodology, and this is also, and key findings, I have words, as I mentioned, that I have words with journalists, so they don't have a clear concept. They know what is AI, the full form of AI, but they don't know how to use it, how to get the proper data, how to find these are the fake news, these are the misinformation. So this is the right time and high time to train journalists and give a proper training, because we are getting lot of information from journalism or from reporting. So that is my main concern and major finding is like giving a proper training to this journalism, and at the same time there are so many bias information, data inequality also there. So we need to work on that, like back end work, like the giving command or proper instructions to the AI. And this conclusion is like regular AI literacy training and ethical journalism training program should be established in media organization, the news organizations and technology platforms, and advise invest more in Bengali language, because we are getting good content in English but not in Bengali or in other language also. So the research found that artificial intelligence is progressively shaping the way journalism in practice, newsrooms are run, and political news views in digital media landscape, especially in Kolkata. Although AI-related technologies also enhanced the efficiency and interest of the audience, and participants also stressed the significance of the ethical control and human editing decisions. Thank you so much, madam.
Thank you all our presenters for their insightful and thought-provoking contributions. We have now come to the end of the paper presentations for this session. At this point, I would like to open the floor for a quick question and answer session. I invite the members of the audience to share their questions, comment, or observation for the presenters. If you have any other questions for any other presenters. Okay. So now I would like to open the floor to our esteemed session chair, Dr. Promiti Roy, ma'am, for her observations, comments, and concluding remarks to the presentations delivered during the session.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I have a few questions for I think all of you, because that's what because there are some areas which I needed a clarification on, and of course prior to that, I just want to ask you, no questions for your presenters. No? That's pretty an undemocratic, a kind of a setup we are in, but no, just kidding. Okay, so my first question for, I think, Ritanvita goes as, I think her paper was on algorithmic colonization and the digital afterlife of the literary canon, search engines, recommendation systems, and the persistence of Western literary authority, right? If I'm not mistaken. So, okay. So my first question is, I wanted to see one of your findings, because, you were kind of course, the time was limited. What is, like, there was a research question which in your presentation which said digital platforms mediate literacy, visibility, and authority. Does it, kind of mediate? So what are your findings on that? Yes.
Okay, I definitely am not doing computational studies or stuff like that. I just opened Google and I am interested in post-colonial theory, and as Edward said, argues like the Orientalist assumptions are based on a reproduction of a knowledge system and filtering of knowledge, and I couldn't include that in the short time frame, but I also used Foucault's archaeology of knowledge and how knowledge is being withheld, and my disparity was through Google searches and through various educational platforms. Like the first things that come to our mind through Google Scholar or Internet Archive, the disparity between resources. And my problem statement is that even though Gitanjali has received international recognition, it has a Nobel Prize, but even if I go to JSTOR, I can't find substantial material, and there is a disparity within the accumulation of the material. Like the repository, there is a huge disparity. That is what I studied through search results from Google Scholar, Amazon, and Goodreads. It's about accessibility, and sometimes Gitanjali is kind of obscure. Some poems are available, some poems are not available. So in spite of recognition, there is this kind of a gatekeeping due to accessibility. That is what my research problem is. And actually search engines also have a colonial bias, just like a paper that just got presented with the hegemony and the colonial assumptions in translation as well through ChatGPT. It's very similar to that, like the filtering of resources, unavailability. Maybe research works up in studies, but search engines maybe don't like let a lot of people publish, or maybe they don't have access to like niche content like that. So even if you want to explore, like somebody from outside India maybe wants to explore Rabindranath Tagore, they won't get a huge array of resources as anybody exploring any canonical text would do from like the British Eurocentric literary canon. Yeah, I was expecting that, but there is no context. I just wanted to take one Indian text and which has international recognition, and one very cliche canonical text. Like if the moment we think of Shakespeare, we think of Macbeth and Hamlet and Othello. So it's just like I basically randomized it. Like what if I was just scrolling through Google and kind of doom scrolling, and it just came to my mind. Like let me just compare the search results, because I was also studying Gitanjali in my undergraduate days, and I did have difficulty finding them. And I thought like I would convert it into a paper if I also incorporate my studies into post-colonial theories. It was basically a doom scrolling impulsive thought, but I actually noticed the kind of differences, the repository. In Hamlet, you will find so many PDFs, Internet Archive, lit charts and everything. But for Gitanjali, maybe there are some accessibility websites, some incorrect translations, some websites exploring the themes, but nothing concrete that I can absolutely rely on. And this is not even about the context or the history. It's about how like the Eurocentric preference in any text. Like if I even look at American literature, there will be so many resources, but any niche Indian dystopian text, suppose like Prag Akbar's Leela, I can't find material on the internet, even though it is like a broadly discussed text and it is in discursive material. So it is about the Eurocentric bias, and my focus wasn't on the interpretation or the study of the historical or material or the context of the text, but about the colonial hangover that has been inculcated in search engines and knowledge systems and even our epistemological thinking. Um,
align with the dimensions of climate resilience. And fourth one is how does, yeah, yeah. Government Instagram post like, no, ma'am. Actually, I have chosen one Instagram post that is officially Ministry of Environment and like Forest Climate Communication, which is like operated by the Government of India. So I have chosen this post, like Instagram account. Yeah, 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 yeah. I am not like I 1 year I have post like I have recognized January 2025 till December 2025. Like all the posts they have shared through their like the theme should be related. We have generated the theme. The theme is already in literatures. Like based on the adaptability, sustainability, diversity. Like 8 themes are there of climate resilience. Based on that themes, I have chosen the post which shoot that themes. And the theme should be like there is inclusion and exclusion criteria. Inclusion like there should be at least one like, and promotional post should not be there. And exclusion, these are the exclusions. Inclusions like adaptability, sustainability, there are 8 themes of that climate resilience. Based on that theme, the post should be like we have measured that post, and after that we have done the in qual coder I have coded that post, and we have got the results. Yeah, that is the limitations of my study. That yeah, yeah. Qualitative, yeah, we have done the purposes sampling, ma'am. Sorry. Multimodal content analysis. Multimodal, like we have chosen images, videos, hashtag, and comments also. Yeah, yeah. I have not chosen all the post. So I have chosen like purposive sampling. We have done like purposive post only. We have chosen based on because it is, but it a multimodal approach we have used. It's a qualitative. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. But multimodal approach is based on the qualitative approach. So I have mentioned it as a qualitative. Yeah, yeah, sure, ma'am. Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. Sorry.
Next, the third paper, yeah. Sudhir Pandey, yeah. So, sir, can I just ask you, there was again a question, algorithmic management, you talked about that, right? So, the social stigma, how does it affect? And you also talk about prejudice, right? Yeah. Yeah.
But when people started studying this in the context of organization, society, institution, and then they understood that it is not only about, like anything can be stigmatized, but something which is legitimate and legitimized by the institution, that is very dangerous. And then they came at how, and then some people studied what is the cycle of stigma.
Yeah.
So is it directly stigma or something else? And they said the stigma does not go directly, but first it begins like this, then prejudice, and then it begins like discrimination. And the level of discrimination we
But sir,
realize.
don't you think that prejudice essentially stems from the very, I think, base of any individual, because we are born with certain values and ethics.
That is what it says.
Exactly.
That it is cycle, it
Yeah.
cannot. But and the stigma is everywhere. You
Yeah.
cannot get away from it. But any stigma that becomes a part of degradation in the form of institution.
Yes.
Like recognizing some job. And you know, just you can say kude wala. I think that so that kind of, or spa or HLR. So the kind of, so something somewhere when it comes to job,
Yeah.
like these safety workers and sanitary workers or these people, and particularly when it intersects with caste and gender, that is very dangerous. So there has to be some effort to just, that's why remember Swachhata Abhiyan, so Prime Minister said that everybody has to do this Swachhata so that the stigma associated with this will go away. But in certain jobs it still remains. So
Thank
it's a process and it's very subtle.
Yeah. Because I thought that prejudice essentially stems not only from stigma, but it actually goes to the very basis of, because we are born with certain values, our parents teach us, our grandparents teach us. Yes, yes. Cycle, yeah, it's a vicious cycle, exactly, it's a cycle. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Okay, so the fourth presenter, Sharanya, yeah. There was this one particular term which you used in the PPT, lesser known sports, right? What do you mean by lesser known sports? And what essentially determines which is lesser known and what? I mean, what forms the context? Yeah. No, but you have mentioned that lesser known sports gets least visible when it comes to media, right? But don't you think it's the other way around? Because it's not covered by the media, because we don't have enough sponsors to the sport, hence it is a lesser known sport. That's what I wanted to mention, that lesser known sport essentially gets not properly covered by the media. That's what your entire statement went, right? But don't you think it's the other way around? That because there are not enough sponsors for those particular sports, and because it did not get that amount of coverage in media, hence they are lesser known sport, as what you have coined the term, right? So don't you think it's kind of the other way around? What kind of you mentioned in this particular PPT of yours? Like what are your views on it? Like think about it. Lesser known, think about it. Lesser known sports, why? Because you don't have enough coverage of that particular sports, right? But you said lesser known sports essentially get low coverage when it comes to media. But don't you think it's the other way around actually? That's what I'm asking. Because it is not getting that much, because it didn't get that amount of coverage in media. It's not getting, yeah. Hence it's not known. No. So think about it. I think it's the other way around. Because that's what you mentioned in the PPT. Lesser known sport essentially is something which, again, I would like to say, not uses and gratification theory. I think you should actually talk about it, because you talked about uses and gratification theory, right? I think a it's a theoretical implication that you can give, but side by side, I think it's also primary. It's also very, yeah, agenda setting field. I think it's way more, pertinent when it comes to this particular topic, right? Because the media essentially is not getting that amount of sponsors with those particular associated sports. Hence, it's not known to people. So I personally think it's the other way around. So think about it, right? So thank you. And also, one more question I wanted to ask you. How did you choose the methodology? Yeah. Yes. Why purposive? Why purposive? Because I saw it's only purposive sampling that you've done. So why purposive sampling? Why not random? But watching sports and not watching sports, I think, like, I don't know, I'm asking you all, shouldn't it be random? Purposive sampling is only meant for a very niche kind of a study area. But I think sports is available to all. It's a very democratic kind of a platform that we essentially get when it comes to sports, right? Everyone can watch sports. Everyone does watch sports. IPL, I think it's a family entertainment. So why purposive sampling? Hence, I would like to make you think about it, if you can think about it actually. Because now IPL is a family, like a family drama, and everyone will watch it. So why purposive sampling, right? So think about it, right? Thank you. Next, I think, yeah, fifth, yeah. So, Manushri. Okay, so biased data, non-updated data, AI manipulating media, or vice versa. What do you think? Because you talked about biased data, but do you think it's biased data? Only, and not updation of data?
Not exactly. It's not only biased data. Of course, it's manipulated data too. Like, let's say I am running a portal, and I support maybe BJP. So definitely, I'll put all the positive stories of BJP and negative stories of other party. So it's a bias plus manipulated. We can say both the things at the same time. So maybe I skip that manipulated data, but yeah, biased data equal to manipulated data, both will be there. So yeah, that's one. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes. Yes. That. Yes, ma'am. My mistake. I have to incorporate that. Yeah, I will do that, ma'am. Yes. Yes, yes. It's manipulated too. Right. Yes, yes. Yes, ma'am. I will. I will do that. I'll do that, ma'am. Yes. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Promiti Roy, ma'am, for your insightful comments and for expertly moderating this session. With this, we come to the end of today's technical session. We hope the exchanges during this session inspire further speech, dialogue, collaboration. And thank you once again for all your participation. We wish you an enriching experience for the remainder of ICA Regional Hub Conference 2026. Before we conclude our discourse, I would like to request all our presenters and our esteemed session chair to kindly join in for a group